Hey, Strength Squad. This week with our educational content, I'm going to talk about two things. I'm going to talk about why we're using a quote unquote lower volume approach to training, as well as how to know if you're on the right track with our training. How to know if you're, progressing, gaining muscle, some of these things. So, first off, in terms of the lower volume approach, so volume is basically just the amount of working sets you're doing per muscle group in the session and over the course of the week. So you can kind of add this up, right? If you did say lateral raises and shoulder presses for your shoulders, you did 2 sets of each. You did that twice a week. That'd be 4 working sets per session, 8 working sets over the course of the week. These are just ways to quantify how much work we're doing. And it does matter because the effect of increasing basically that protein synthesis session to session is what's going to lead muscle growth or increase muscle growth, and we're going to talk about that in a second. So with regards to our training, there are certain volume thresholds or kind of landmarks that I follow in order when I'm programming. So I'm going to put these down below just so you can kind of see where I'm coming from. This is based on the scientific literature that's out there right now in terms of the maximum kind of tolerable volume. After that, there's a point of diminishing returns, as well as the per session volume as well. And then this is also from just my own anecdotal experience training people on the floor, training myself, and then kind of seeing what is working. Now, when we talk about these volume thresholds, remember that it's not all created equal too, right? So if we talked about that 8 working sets throughout the week for shoulders, if you did 2 sets of, or 4 sets on one day, 4 sets on the other day, it's a good way to do it. If you did 8 sets on one day, that'd be a really crappy way to do it because by the time you basically get to about 6 sets, really you're not going to create a whole lot of growth because of fatigue. You're not able to recruit those higher threshold muscle fibers. Remember too that we are training to maximize growth on a couple specific muscle groups. The other muscle groups are going to kind of get put on the back burner in terms of volume, so we can allocate more recovery resources towards the ones we're trying to increase in size. If you look at basically the volume throughout the week, though, you're going to get enough volume if you come into the general classes anyways to grow those other muscle groups as well. And then if you look at movement patterns, some movement patterns train more than one muscle group and can be kind of combined. So if you do say a dip, depending on how you do it, it's going to contribute to chest and tricep volume as well. Say if you did like a chest supported row with a 45-degree elbow flare, predominantly upper back, but you're going to get some lat maintenance volume there as well. So these are just things to look at based off of your goals. Again, we're talking about muscle growth here. When we're trying to trigger muscle growth, the 2 things that matter the most is that we are triggering basically an increase in muscle protein synthesis, and this happens through basically stimulating mechanical tension on individual fibers. So individual fibers are experiencing high degrees of mechanical tension. They're contracting slowly close to failure. These are kind of the most important things that we're looking for when we're talking about muscle growth. We're also talking about progressive overload. Progressive overload, being able to add stimulus each week in terms of reps or sets and apply more tension to that muscle progressively, is super important with regards to that. So those are the 2 most important things that we're trying to do. Now, if we think about doing sets on sets on sets per session, it doesn't have as much of an effect as you would think on muscle growth, because remember that first set you do for a muscle group is going to be the most stimulative, and at every set after that is going to trigger less and less growth, right? Because you're fatigued, you're going to be able to recruit less and less motor units or high threshold muscle fibers each set. So you're going to get to a point where you're not going to be able to trigger very much growth. You're going to create fatigue with those subsequent sets. That's going to hamper recovery. It's going to take recovery resources away, because if you have muscle fibers that you're trying to increase in size and you have muscle protein synthesis resources going towards them, but you also have muscle damage, kind of some of the like extracellular elements, you're going to also have to put some resources towards kind of repairing that. Now, we don't want that. We want a lot of the resources going here and not here. And remember that the cumulative effect throughout the week of these increases in protein synthesis is what leads to muscle growth, right? So if we do a killer set of 10 sets on our chest on Monday, you're probably not gonna be able to train your chest till like Friday at minimum, right? So you're not gonna have that kind of cumulative effect. That's why we have a higher frequency training program going on. So remember that fatigue affects each subsequent set. It's less stimulative. There's a point of diminishing returns where the stimulus you're going to get from another set is going to create so much fatigue that it's going to kind of not be worth the squeeze that way. Okay, so that's why you see less and less and less with regards to what we're doing. And the general classes you see more, but that's because I can't ensure that everyone's training hard enough, right? You guys are training hard at the appropriate RIRs, or should be, most of you are. So I can ensure that we don't need as much volume. We're more precise with what we're doing. If you feel like you could do more, but you're progressing week to week, why would you change that? If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Think about it again. It's same idea like if your kids are playing baseball and you're trying to fix their baseball swing and they're swinging, and you take, you know what I mean, your first couple rounds of BP are fantastic. The swing, you're working on something, it looks great. And then all of a sudden, right, you just throw BP into oblivion and the swings start to get crappy at the end. You're really not adding anything useful, right? You're just getting your athlete tired, and you're not basically creating any sort of meaningful stimulus because the reps are crappy. Same kind of idea of what we're doing. Now, how to know if you're progressing or if you're on the right track week to week, you should be asking yourself a couple things. Am I progressing each week? Am I adding a rep? Am I adding weight to the bar? This is basically the most important thing. If you're adding weight to the bar week to week, or you're adding reps with the same or better technique, things are good. If you don't, or if you are not, we need to kind of adjust volume or look at things like sleep, nutrition, and recovery and stuff like that. But if you are, then why would we add anything else? Because that's just going to create more and more stress to the body, which might hamper our ability to overload for the next session. So if you're following the programming and this is happening, then you're in a good spot. Should you expect to see meaningful changes in muscle mass week to week, or after these last 6 weeks? Not really. I wouldn't say you're not going to see much increases in muscle mass for a couple more weeks at least, because remember, muscle is structural in nature. It takes a long time to build that, right? Strength is quicker because it's more neural, but muscle mass takes a long time to build. Think about how long you've been training at this gym and how much muscle you built. You're more advanced now. It's going to take a little bit more time, right? But it's a cumulative effect of these sessions and the consistency of that takes, you know what I mean, makes the real type of difference. You may see changes in body compositions, how you're looking, but that predominantly is going to have to do with nutrition. If you're eating more, you're going to look a little bit bigger. If you're eating less, you're going to look a little bit leaner. That is basically where you're going to see the most changes. But that's why we're doing a 12-week program, because 12 weeks, we are going to see meaningful changes in muscle mass by the end of it. A 6-week it's a lot more difficult. Okay, so hopefully that kind of answers your question. If you're not seeing super crazy changes with regards to your body composition, but you're seeing increases in the weight week to week, and you're lifting weights you've never lifted before, you are on the right track. So keep chipping away at it.